Oh wow, yeah. Now that is informative. I might be able to use that next time I'm selling at sea, or perhaps trying to not run from the dark light. Oh hey! How is everybody doing? Welcome, 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 people of the internet. Kimchi Chris here, and welcome to today's episode. A very spectacular episode of Rock Bliss with Kimchi Chris. I was just catching up on some reading here. It's always good to get a good reading in of a shirtless Paul Stanley magazine. It's a long time coming, but you're not here to hear about that today. You are here because it is the 40th anniversary, the 40th birthday, the 40th celebratory year of what many consider the greatest Kiss record of all time. What many consider the most artistic Kiss record of all time. What many consider a complete pile of trash by a band that they probably don't even like to start with. Of course, today we are talking about the 40th anniversary of Music from the okay, it'd be nice if these lights would work whenever you want them to. Music from the Elder. Okay, there you got it. You got it. All right, 40th anniversary of Music from the Elder. A very divisive Kiss record. That's right. It has been around for 40 years. It's a certified classic at this point, whether you love it or hate it. But before we jump into the actual record itself, let's look at where the band was leading up to this, because there's a reason for the season when it comes to this very unique release in history. So this record came out in 1981, and leading up to that, things weren't looking good for the band. In 1977, they were the biggest band in the world. Have you seen the inside cover to Alive 2? It's euphoric, but past that, things started to get a little bit crazy, and even at that time, they were a little bit crazy. They released solo records in 78. They released the Phantom of the Park movie that none of them really liked after it was released, also in 78. In 1979, they released Dynasty, a record that has went on to be considered a classic, but at the time featured I Was Made for Loving You, which was a disco song. Kiss was a rock band. Things weren't looking so hot at that point. There were more families coming to their shows than young rock and roll guys in leather jackets, and things were looking a little bit shaky, to say the least, for the band, and especially the inner workings of the band. By 1980, Peter Criss was out of the band and Eric Carr was in, and what did the band do to rekindle their youth, rekindle their fan base, rekindle the rock and roll in 1980? They released a power pop record in the form of Unmasked, and the band was just getting less and less popular in America. In other places in the world, like Australia, they were doing really well, but America wasn't looking so hot. So in 1981, to rekindle that flame that they had quite frankly lost at that point for a lot of people, what did they do? Did they release an even more poppy record? Did they lean into the pop leanings more? No! Did they put out a straightforward rock and roll record to kind of rekindle that energy they had early on? No. They went in a different direction. They put out Music from the Elder. And for those uninitiated, this was Kiss's answer to Pink Floyd's The Wall. In other words, it's supposed to be a grandiose, over-the-top artistic achievement concept record with a full story about a boy that turns into a man, and along the way he has to go under the rose, whatever that means, and fight Mr. Blackwell and run away from dark lights and escape the island and believe in himself by the end. And that all sounds well and good, but when the record came out, it flopped. It did really, really bad. The making of the record pretty much tore the band apart even more. Gene was all excited about Hollywood. Paul was depressed. Ace was so out of it, he was recording his solos alone and sending them into the band. And Eric Carr was the new guy, so he didn't really know what was going on. And the music was very un-Kiss-like. There are moments of Kiss. The song Dark Light and I sound like bona fide Kiss classics, but there's falsetto vocals from Paul, like very falsetto ones on the song Just a Boy. And in the music video for A World Without Heroes, Gene Simmons, the demon, cries. He sheds a tear. The demon's not supposed to do that. He's supposed to be the god of thunder. It was very perplexing. I'm sure at the time I wasn't alive when it came out, but I could have seen myself assuming that really was the end. A World Without Heroes was really a fitting title for that song, considering I know a lot of people like it now, but I'm sure at the time a lot of people thought, yeah, Yeah, my heroes are dead. Gene Simmons is crying in a music video. Wow. And the craziest part about all of this is that the band, of course, thought this was the move. They were trying to please the critics. They even brought Bob Ezrin back in to produce this thing. He produced Destroyer, of course, which is arguably still their biggest record to this day, definitely was at that point, and was definitely their biggest artistic achievement at that point. But guess what? He was doing a lot of drugs at the time. That guy didn't know what was going on, and Paul's even said that in subsequent interviews. And Paul has also said as soon as the record was out in stores and he walked into a record store, he knew it was a mistake. The record company didn't want to put the thing out. All of the friends and people close in their life thought it was a bad idea. I mean, this thing had Lou Reed involved with it, okay? Lou Reed and Kiss together, that doesn't make sense. I know that he just worked on writing songs and things like that, but it doesn't make sense. I don't think of Lou Reed when I think of Kiss, and I think most people don't think of Kiss when they think of Lou Reed, so it's just a weird match. I mean, we see what that guy did with the Metallica record. He's not a guy that's really good for rock and roll and metal. He's fine on his own, not really good for these genres, even though he has a big influence on them, I would say. So needless to say, this is a very, very, very divisive record in the Kiss camp of fandom. Some people think it's the greatest thing that they've ever put out. Those people are also wrong. Some people also think it's the worst thing they've put out, or even the worst thing that's Kiss related. And I'm just gonna be real, when you look into Kiss related recordings, there's much worse out there, so I don't think that this even gets close to some of the worst Kiss related recordings, or even Kiss recordings themselves. I mean, you gotta remember, Crazy Nights exists, but for me it falls somewhere in the middle. It's a very interesting record. You have to be in the right mindset to listen to it. You have to be in the right mood. You don't put this on necessarily if you're wanting to go out and party, like most of Kiss's music, but it holds a very special place, and I think that's a thing that makes Kiss unique in the grand scheme of bands. You know, you can't talk about this type of stuff with AC/DC. They don't have a concept record. Even something like Pink Floyd, who we mentioned earlier, that's all they do, so it's not unique. But with Kiss, this is such a weird left turn, and if you really look at that era of the band, everything was a weird left turn. Again, they went from Love Gun, poppy, sure, but pretty much a straightforward rock record, to Dynasty, which was also kind of a straightforward rock record, but had poppy elements, and the first single was a big disco hit. Then you have Unmasked, straight up power pop. You have this, a concept record, and then after that you bring Creatures into the mix, where they turned into the heaviest version of themselves they had been at that point. So even if you hate this thing, but you love Creatures of the Night, you've got to appreciate this thing, because you probably wouldn't have got Creatures of the Night without it. And I know what you're saying to yourself, that's all well and good, but what is your opinion on it? Kimchi Chris, since you are a member of the Council of the Elder, so says your cloak, your costume for this grand event, this thing is coming untied. I kind of look like Little Red Riding Hood. I know, I think that maybe is what this thing was designed for, but in this case it is a cloak of the Elder, and I am the Elder here for this video. And you know, I kind of just played my cards just then. I think it's a good record, maybe even great, but it's not in my top tier Kiss records, but it's far from the bottom as well. It's interesting. I mean, when you really look at the songs here, there's some good stuff. Dark Light is good. We mentioned that earlier. I is great. I really like Mr. Blackwell. What a funky, cool, unique song, having the bass be kind of the lead in the song. You know, The Oath is great. That's a heavy song. That could have been on Creatures if produced properly. That's great. I actually think Odyssey is pretty fun. Only You, nah. We're Without Heroes, ugh. But Escape from the Island, great instrumental. Maybe their best instrumental ever. Maybe Car Jam's pretty great too, but Escape from the Island, there's not a lot of choices, let's be real. Kissin' Time is not as exciting as Escape from the Island, but I think it's a good record. It's an acceptable record, and I remember when I got it as a kid, kind of listening to it a time or two, and it didn't stick out as being that different, weirdly enough. But I also didn't love it necessarily, so I didn't listen to it a lot until down the line when I got more into Kiss fandom, and it was always talked about as that legendary bad Kiss record, and I think that's selling it a bit short. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, including members of the band, that it's a good record, just not a good Kiss record. I think that's a valid thing to say in some ways, but again, this is what makes this band unique and worth talking about in excess. I love the Ramones, and even though they have some differences along the line, a lot of their stuff, you know, it never took a turn like this necessarily. So I think it's great to have some unique, weird left turns. Now, mind you, it almost cost the band their entire career, and it did cost them a member. Was it worth that? I don't know, but here we are 40 years later, and there's a devout fan base for this record, because there's a very devout fan base for this. People have wrote entire screenplay scripts to the movie for this that never came out because, oh yeah, there was supposed to be a movie. Notice it's called Music from the Elder. Yeah, there's supposed to be a movie. And people have wrote sequels to it as well. And people have worked on animated films and live action things, and it's just insane the amount of fandom this record has surrounding it. The arguably worst Kiss record ever. Again, that's false, but it's just crazy to think about it. But yeah, I've always enjoyed this record for the most part. I never really hated it. It's a good listen, and if you've never checked it out and you've somehow stomached this whole video, you've got to check this out. You've got to check this thing out. Even if you don't get the vinyl version of it here, just get it on Spotify. You can just pull your phone up and check it out. And speaking of Spotify, that brings us to the current day. And what is the legacy of this record? Well, the band ignored it for a really long time, but then, of course, when they did the MTV Unplugged, they played A World Without Heroes, and I'm sure, had I been in the audience at that time, that would have flabbergasted me. That would have floored me just because I wouldn't have been expecting it. Is it my favorite Kiss song? Definitely not, but it's such a unique one that it would have just been crazy. And they've brought that one out several times in acoustic sets ever since then. They've also played I as well as The Oath on the Kiss cruises, and you know, occasionally flirted with ideas of the record. Do I think we'll ever see the band play the whole thing in its entirety on the cruise or something? Not a chance at all, but I think it's good that the band finally has embraced it a little bit, somewhat begrudgingly, because you know, they know it's one of their records, and it might be a controversial one, but it is one of their records, and it's part of history. And again, it brought us Creatures of the Night, so even if you want to burn this thing at the stake, it brought us arguably one of the top 5 Kiss records in the entire catalog. So I think that alone makes this thing worth existing. And that's all there really is to say about it. So what do you think about The Elder? Let me know in the comments below what you thought of it when you first heard it. Did your opinion change over time? Did it get better? Did it get worse? I want to know all those things and more. Let me know below. If you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on alerts. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the ridiculousness of it all. And again, my name is Kimchi Chris, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye!